What's going on, everybody? In this video, we're going to talk about spot Bitcoin ETFs. Records have been broken. We're going to look at Bitcoin on the chart. We're also going to look at Bitcoin supply on exchanges. It continues hitting new lows. Then we're going to look at CleanSpark and iren on the chart. Bitcoin miners charts in general are improving. And then we'll take a look at PPI and CPI. We do have the forecasts, and these are coming out in just a few days. We do have news that the Bitcoin ETF saw an inflow of 386 million yesterday on Wednesday, as Bitcoin gained 4% in price, bringing it to 110,000. And BlackRock's fund specifically is continuing to break records. And here's a post from Eric Balchunas. IBIT just flew through $70 billion in assets under management and is now the fastest ETF to ever hit that mark in only 341 days, which is 5 times faster than the old record held by a gold fund, GLD, of 1,691 days. And then here's the chart. Here's VOO, there's GLD, and here's IBIT just killing it. And Bitcoin's funding rate flipped positive. A positive funding rate reflects bullish sentiment, increased demand for long positions. Oh, and guys, do you remember global M2 and Bitcoin and how they're so correlated? Well, look at this. Everyone was so fearful when Bitcoin was pulling back and M2 was rising. Now they are much more aligned. Now they are both going up. And as global M2 grows, assets like Bitcoin benefit from it. Boom, send it to 125K with haste. Now looking at Bitcoin on the chart, we mentioned this head and shoulders. This kind of brought us down to like right around 100K, which just so happens to be the 50 MA. We got a bounce there, found support there, and we broke out of this descending trend, this yellow line here that we were talking about. Saw a nice reaction on it that brought us up near all-time highs, all the way to about 110,500 before starting to cool off here today. Now we do have another potential pattern starting to form. Do you guys see this cup? Well, here's a potential for a handle. If we pull back, bounce at around 106, come back up, take those all-time highs out, the sky's the limit. It's very encouraging that on this recent pullback we found support at the 50 MA, and we were quick to recover near all-time highs. It does look like this golden cross has been bringing some bullish momentum after an initial little pullback, which is what we saw last golden cross back here in 2024 of October. We saw this golden cross, a little bit of front running right after that golden cross flashed, basically a day 2 after. We saw a pullback. This pullback seems small, but this was about a 10% drop before Bitcoin broke its highs and went on an insane rally right after the pullback after this golden cross. Every golden cross so far this cycle has been followed by a pretty nice move upwards, and I do expect this one here is no different. Now, where the Bitcoin miners charts are concerned, things are improving. This is CleanSpark here, clsk, and it has been finding support at the 50 MA, but finding resistance at the 200. We did see a false breakout, and it was quickly rejected. We are sitting right at it now. Might get rejected again, potentially head down to 9 area of resistance, sometimes an area of support. But you know, things are starting to improve. We're starting to get the 200 MA finally flattening out, not curling down, not pointing down. The 50 MA has been rising for the last couple weeks, and many of these Bitcoin miners are getting closer and closer to a golden cross. If we can get CleanSpark to break above this 200 MA and hold, trade above the 200 MA for a while, this 50 MA will also flip over it. And we're reaching kind of a pivot too from being unprofitable. Q1 for Bitcoin was pretty negative. It started much higher and ended much lower in that quarter. Q2 is a world of difference. Q2 Bitcoin was in the 80s. Now it's pushing 110,000 area. The Bitcoin miners are very likely to see a positive Q2. We just have to get through the rest of June for the quarter to end. This is the opposite of what happened in Q1. The Bitcoin miners should see a profit thanks to one, Bitcoin's price performance, improvement in price, improvement on their unrealized gains, and also the price of Bitcoin. The most efficient Bitcoin miners are very profitable with a Bitcoin at 110K. Iren stocks chart is also improving. The 50 MA is curling up, the 200 MA is kind of flattening out here, not pointing down anymore, and the price is above it now. There is one negative here that I see though. We do have a bearish divergence potentially. We have lower highs on the RSI, but higher highs on iren's chart. Could see a little cool off down to the $9 area, test and hold the 200 MA. But you know, if you wanted to buy the Bitcoin miners, I do think we're reaching kind of the end. We're getting to a point where it's getting too late in the cycle, getting a bit risky to be buying, especially as they keep pushing up. You wanted to buy while they were not in favor. You wanted to buy while there was fear, while they're oversold, while sentiment is so bad, while everyone's complaining. I would personally be a bit cautious here. Now, as for Bitcoin on exchanges, we are hitting new lows almost day by day, it seems. Bitcoin on exchanges is now sitting at 2.09 million. We're about to crack under 2 million very soon, in my opinion. 1 year ago, we had nearly 1 million more Bitcoin on exchange than we do now. A little under that. But you know, that shows how much things have come in only a year. Bitcoin is continuing to be taken off exchanges. At this rate, Bitcoin will be non-existent basically over the next 2 to 3 years. This is just going to keep depleting and depleting, especially as halvings go by and the Bitcoin being issued into the market gets cut in half every 4 years. This Bitcoin on exchanges is going to continue to get depleted. Bitcoin is becoming more and more scarce as the halvings go by, as time goes by, as demand grows, as Bitcoin ETFs continue to scoop up Bitcoin, as massive companies like MicroStrategy continue to scoop up Bitcoin with goals of holding for the long term, as Bitcoin miners continue to hodl their Bitcoin. This Bitcoin on exchanges is only going to keep getting lower and lower and lower. Now, I do want to mention CPI and PPI. CPI is coming out on the 11th, and we do have a forecast. This is actually expecting a growth the first time in a few months. We've been seeing CPI, PPI actually drop over the last couple of months, getting closer and closer to the Fed's 2% goal. PCE, by the way, the Fed's preferred gauge of inflation, is sitting at like 2.1%, very close to their goal. But this is a bit concerning that we're seeing these tick up. Potentially, at least the forecast is showing that. If we can see these come in at last month's read, 2.3, that would bring a lot of relief to the market, hoping for rate cuts. If we see CPI and PPI and then possibly PCE coming back up, that makes the likelihood of the Fed cutting decrease. Unemployment is still kind of sticking around the 4.2% area. If inflation stays somewhat elevated over the Fed's target, and if unemployment can stay where it's at and not start rising, the Fed will be less and less inclined to cut. Looking at PPI, this is coming out on the 12th. The forecast is a 2.6. The previous read was a 2.4. This is also expecting a tick up. So the market will be closely watching PPI and CPI this week. If we at least improve over the forecast, that'll be good. But, you know, if this doesn't come in at 2.4 or under, then this will be a rise month over month and not necessarily going in the direction we hope for. So keep an eye on CPI and PPI. These will be important to watch. The market will react to them. These will definitely affect the probabilities for rate cuts. But how are you guys feeling about Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miners? Things have been improving lately. The Bitcoin ETFs continue to stack Bitcoin, continue to see new records in terms of assets under management. Bitcoin supply on exchanges continues to hit new lows. And while we are possibly seeing a small rise in CPI and PPI, they are heavily improved from where they were a year ago. And they have been getting closer to the Fed's target, although these upcoming reads might be a bit iffy. Overall, these inflation reads have been kind of trending down with some speed bumps along the way. Hopefully we can continue our downward trajectory after this following read and get CPI, PPI, PCE to the Fed's target, getting rate cuts at the end of this year, helping risk on assets like Bitcoin, Bitcoin's proxies, and finishing the end of this cycle strong. But thanks as always for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one.